Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for having David and I here at the first Yale University Global Justice Program Symposium on Pro-Poor Mountain Tourism. It is an honor and a privilege to be with you today. To the editors, many thanks for your time, your guidance, and this opportunity. And to our colleagues, congratulations, and thank you for sharing your research with us today. We will jump into our chapter 13, Tourism's Role in Addressing Poverty Through Asset Equity in the United States Mountain West. And a quick introduction. My name is Bryan Breidenbach, and I am a PhD student here at Colorado State University. And I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. David Knight.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. Definitely as part of this first of its kind Yale Summit. And it's great to see other colleagues working with Anne elsewhere and others. But anyways, great to see you all. So a quick overview, and then I'm going to hand this over to Bryan because this is his baby. He's really been delving into a lot of the policy legislation issues associated with the housing crisis and land use change in the state of Colorado, with implications for our nation, the United States as a whole, but also the world. I think a lot of these issues are being seen. So in this presentation, briefly, we'll be talking about some of the key themes and issues highlighted in our chapter, which was a thematic lit review on asset equity and tourism poverty research from around the world, with a focus on Colorado. The presentation here is going to get into some macro level considerations tied to asset equity and rural resort communities in our home state. And then we're going to tie in some micro level case studies tied to Aspen, Colorado, Vail, and Steamboat Springs. And those are looking at various issues that are of great importance in this discussion. And then Bryan will close with this conclusion around kind of tying together these asset equity concerns, poverty alleviation, and tourism in these mountain towns. So Bryan, it's all yours. Looking forward to being part of everything here.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Always a pleasure to work with you, David. Okay, so we did a lit review essentially and went into the literature on quite a few themes within sustainable tourism development. And we thought it'd be interesting to highlight the lit with some case studies and some examples here to bring a practitioner lens to our chapter. And we'll start out here with introducing you to Colorado here, central in the United States, Mountain West area. And recently, affordable housing has been described as a crisis in Colorado. But what is affordable housing? Well, if you're spending more than 30% of your gross income on your housing costs, then you are housing cost burden. So ideally, you'd be spending less than 30% of your income on your housing costs. And often, population change in Colorado is a narrative that we hear quite frequently on the rising cost of living and the cost of housing. And this map here will show the change in population over the past 20 years. And this kind of area right here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit where you can see that. This is what they call the Front Range. And the Mountain West runs west of the Front Range here. So your Denver is going to be this kind of densely populated area there. So going back, we happen to see, though, that if you look at the change in population in terms of a percentage, it's actually below some different peaks in recent timeline here spatially and temporally. So it's not necessarily a change in population, but also other contributing factors. So 40% fewer homes were built between 2010 and 2020, resulting in more residents experiencing what would be described as extreme house cost burden. So if you're spending more than 30, you're burdened with your housing costs. You're spending over 50, you're extremely cost burdened. And this map demonstrates areas by precinct in Colorado that have residents that are spending more than 50% of their income. So concentrated in the Front Range, we also see some on the Eastern Plains, but some pockets here in the rural resort communities. Moving on. So at the macro level, Colorado is currently facing an affordable housing crisis, but how do rural resort communities compare to the broader state trends? And rural resort is really the core of what our focus was on when talking about the Mountain West. The Mountain West in general might encompass, you could say, Idaho, Utah, New Mexico, Nevada, but frequently, a lot of people identify Colorado as the Mountain West. So here are the 12 rural resort communities of Colorado. And some characteristics of those 12 rural resort communities are that they're tourism-dependent economies, proximity to open space and recreation. They might have disproportionate access to resources compared to their size, scarcity of developable land, competitive real estate markets, and these areas are remote. They're tourism-based. So this pie chart here shows the 12 counties and the amount of tourism dollars that were contributed to their economies in 2023. So tourism is capable of poverty reduction, but is this benefit generalizable for residents during the life cycle of tourism destinations? What we have are looking at here is a map of Colorado. I'm going to zoom out. And those are the 12 rural resort communities. The map is identifying areas by precinct within those counties that are experiencing affordability crisis. And how to interpret this map is the lighter the area, the more affordable. The darker the area, the less affordable. And this quick analysis we did showed that only 4 precincts out of 176 that encompass the rural resort communities currently meet affordability requirements. And that would mean that the average worker in those communities making the average salary would qualify for a mortgage without spending more than 30% of their income on their mortgage cost. So well-being is not merely achieved because opportunity is created through development, but rather when basic capabilities are satisfied through development. So if we're providing a wage through the opportunity of tourism, but that wage is not sufficient enough to afford housing within a community, is this equitable? So we'll now examine 3 rural resort communities as case studies to highlight the complex impacts of growth management policies, housing market pressures, of vacancy and short-term rentals, and land use conflict. And these are all themes within our chapter that we talk about in a theoretical lens, but this is adds a little context to the theory that we discuss. So moving to Aspen, in 1977, the city of Aspen began limiting growth to 3.47% annually. And this map here demonstrates a few things, actually, if you're looking at it now. The dots represent population. So each dot represents 1,000 individuals, 1,000 residents. And the shading corresponds to permits issued. So Pitkin County, home to Aspen, which is probably about right there or so, issued 5,401 permits between 1980 and 2022, of which 71% were for single family homes. This has likely led to workforces moving into surrounding Eagle County and commuting into Aspen for their tourism employment. So zooming back out here.
By permitting, that's permits to build those residential homes.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, permits to build.
Mhm.
Uh, Moving on to Vail, another component of the affordable housing crisis. And when we say affordable housing crisis, we're really talking, that's what we mean by asset equity as affordable housing. Within Eagle County, 5,000 properties are registered as short-term rentals. Uh, they found a recent study by the Colorado Legislative Oversight Committee concerning tax policy found that 86% of STRs in Eagle or in neighboring Summit County were owned and operated by non-residents, and 77% uh, in Eagle County. In total, if you combine this with the vacancy, so second homes occupied for maybe a few weeks, a few months out of the year, roughly 49% of the available housing units in Eagle County are unavailable to full-time residents. And I really like this map here demonstrating the vacancy rates within precincts of those three counties. We have Route up here, Eagle, and Pitkin. And the taller and darker the color green, the higher the vacancy rate. So in the areas that are darkest green, that would represent a vacancy rate between 50 and 79%. And last, we'll go to Steamboat here to talk about land use and resident motivations. Steamboat Springs passed affordable housing legislation in 2022 by over 60%. But 2 years later, in 2024, they failed to approve affordable housing annexation by 60%.
And
So
can I
what
say,
does this?
I jump in,
Oh, yeah.
Brian, really quick? Can I just jump in? I just was thinking for our international viewers watching this, for those of you who are not skiers, right? You don't like the snow. Maybe you haven't been to the mountains too much in Colorado. These three cases these are world-class ski area, ski resort destinations. So I just wanted to clarify that for everyone watching, right? Cool. Thanks, Brian.
No, thanks for adding that, David. Yes,
Why not, right? Just throw that out.
and expanding summer operations for tourism, mountain biking, and various different adventure style vacation options as well. Expanding the the loss in revenues that historically had encompassed those communities. And one other map here I wanted to show. This demonstrates the connection between renters and affordable housing on that vote. So the darker the shade, the higher the percent for the affordable housing legislation in 2022, and also the highest percentage of renters in Steamboat Springs by precinct here. So connecting this back into our chapter, if sustainable tourism development is to reduce poverty by means of development that creates opportunities, then the opportunities generated must be obtainable for locals. It's more than a wage that we're defining well-being as. It's the capabilities that come along with that wage, the agency that the residents themselves feel that they have being able to live and work in the communities that they are employed in. So if you'd like to find out more about Chapter 13, Pro-Poor Mountain Tourism, that applies a critical lens to literature and sustainable tourism development and the potential for improved residential capabilities through asset equity and alleviation of poverty, find out more at our link. All right, and that is the end of our slides there.